one particular brother comes to mind who is actually working to make PDF versions that counteract this. And I think his efforts should be applauded. But in general, especially on sacredtext.com, those are no replacements for books. They are incomplete. The books that are put out by the OTO, HB has to be commended on his scholarship and research. There have been some gaffes in the past, but in general, the annotations, the indexes, and things like that are a huge addition. And to think that you can just pull up the text and do word searches and things like that, and that's the equivalent of an index, is to really not understand what an index is about. Second, I don't think it's a waste of time. Books are a physical manifestation of ideology. And if you disagree with that, look at the numbers. There are more books coming out every year than all the previous years before. If we were going to move towards a paperless society, we're actually going in the opposite direction. So we're doing something wrong. The means of technology have allowed us to produce more books, not less, and more people are getting their words out on the written page. And that's where it has substantial meaning. You look at anybody within the printing industry or the media industry, and they don't consider a web edition or a book edition the same thing. A book edition actually has a lot more weight, and it has a lot more, literal weight, but it also has a lot more gravitas within people's ideas. If someone's going to spend the time and put it on paper and spend the money, obviously it's more meaningful. Now, to address your Thelema is not Crowley, I think that is a silly statement that I hear quite frequently. That's like saying Christianity isn't Jesus or Paul, or that Muslims don't need Muhammad, or that the Buddha has nothing to do with Buddhism. You can't remove the founder from the spirituality or the system. If you do, the system becomes meaningless. If you take Crowley out of Thelema, Thelema doesn't really mean anything. It's just now your personal collection, your hodgepodge of whatever spiritual practices you want. If you want to do that, that's fine. More power to you. But don't call it Thelema. Thelema needs Crowley. Crowley is the glue that binds it all together. And you talk about people like Duquette and Wasserman putting out books. Now, I've had Duquette on the show multiple times, and I think he has done really good work. But the reality is everything that he does builds on Crowley. He quotes Crowley, he references Crowley, he annotates Crowley, he builds on Crowley's work. Even his My Life in Spirits is a biography of him doing the work that Crowley recommended. You go to Jim Wasserman, what is Wasserman doing? He's editing, or he's introducing, or he's working with the works of Crowley and Crowley's students. You're going to have a hard time having anything to do with Thelema and not have it reference back to Crowley. Similarly, you reference a Christian church and what they're doing. I would love for you to show me a Christian church that doesn't have Jesus centered within their work. And all of the books that they put out always have references back to the scriptures of Jesus Christ. So therefore, it's not surprising when you look at Thelemic books, they always have references back to Aleister Crowley. Again, Crowley is the glue that binds Thelema together. You take Crowley out, you don't have Thelema. You just have whatever. Now, you're saying, is it worth the time? I would have to say yes, books are very much worth the time. You can't go and learn what you can from a book from being in a social community. You can't even do that in a class. If that was the case, you wouldn't have to read books in school. You could just go and the teacher would give you information. Books allow information to be presented in a consistent, in-depth, portable way. Something that reading online is less apt to do. Also, I don't think the OTO is interested in making money. If it was, it would actually be out there producing books, releasing books, and also asking the members for more money so that they could do those endeavors. But they're not. In fact, it's afraid to ask people for money. So I don't think the OTO is interested in making money. Now, you say that the OTO should make its events more memorable. I have no problems with that. But you have to remember, memorability comes from meaning. If the event is meaningful, people will remember it. And what makes the things memorable or meaningful is that it has some kind of connection to their spirituality and or their needs. So again, that goes back to what Thelema is about. If they are a Thelemic group, and that could be questionable with the way the leaders are moving the OTO away from Crowley, but nevertheless, Crowley is what holds it all together, and the events are becoming less and less memorable because they are moving away from Crowley and Crowley's ideas and Crowley's writings and things like that. And as they do that, the events become less and less meaningful and become more just about a social club that is based on whatever. It's not really important what it is. It's just kind of the idea that people come around, and then it's the social thing that matters. I think that kind of idea is completely foolish. But that's the kind of garbage that people are putting out. So thank you for sending your email and bringing this discussion up. Again, I completely disagree with you, but it's good to have a variety of opinions stated on the show. The next email is from a listener named Frater Controversy.
93, John. This is Frater Controversy from Buffalo, New York. I called today to thank you for a wonderfully educational 2 years. I have enjoyed your podcast, and I thank you for keeping it alive amongst the many changes in your personal life. I found your talk with Keith 418 in podcast number 40 about the books going out of print to be extremely frustrating and incredibly maddening. This is yet one more example of how the current leadership is damaging instead of building the order. Until they take what they themselves do seriously, how can they honestly expect the community to take them seriously? Best of luck to you, John, as you finish your studies, move forward with your publishing business, and your move to Europe. Thanks once again for keeping the podcast alive. It is greatly appreciated. Love is the law, love under will.
Thank you very much for your comments and sending that in. As the last caller's comments, I agree with you that it is unfortunate that the Order is not putting the books out, and it seems sometimes we're beating that dead horse there. But the books are really what spread the message, and books outlive people. Ideas presented in books are eternal, or at least seem eternal. I mean, we're still talking about Plato's ideas, and those were written down, millennia ago. And we have numerous other authors who wrote their ideas down in books and so forth centuries and millennium ago. So, to think that the web in its ephemeral aspects can replace a book, I think is just really silly. Anyway, going to the next comment is from a listener named Neil.
Hi, John. This is Neil from Los Angeles, California. Been a long-time listener. Really asset. And I understand you mentioned in your last podcast that you were going to Europe to continue or to finish in graduate school. Well, I have a question for you. What if you, put together some kind of audition to continue it, what is a good thing, and I'm sure a lot of people consider, like myself, to be just, as I mentioned before, an asset. And keep this good thing going. We could have a switchover like Art Bell and George Norrie. Anyway, thanks for putting on this show, and thank you. Bye.
Well, thank you very much for that comment, and I'll keep that in mind. For right now, though, I think I'm going to try and keep producing the podcast as I can, when I can, and we'll go from there. The likelihood is there will be some format changes over the near future, especially once I get settled in Amsterdam. I'm going to have a different computer system there versus my large mixing board, microphone, computer, monitor, and all that. I'm going to be on a laptop, so I'm not entirely sure how that's going to play out. But nevertheless, I certainly will, work to produce the best podcast I can. And if it just becomes too much, then I'll decide what to do from there. So nevertheless, thanks for the suggestion and the voicemail. All right, the next listener and the last voicemail is from someone who's posing a very different kind of question.
Hi, John. I wanted to say I really appreciate your show, and I hope that you'll love your studies in Europe. It's going to be nice to get out of the bubble, out of the media bubble of the United States. My questions or my interests are, what, if anything, does the OTO have to say, or people within it, to do with the questions of global warming now? I mean, we're in the end of Horus, New Age, so forth. I feel like the age of force and fire, whatever you want to call it, doesn't necessarily address the possible environmental end-of-the-world scenario that is certainly in the minds of many now, and more as time goes on. I know that might be some kind of contingent, some kind of thing off the track of our will, but I don't know. That's something that interests me. And the other question I had to raise was, and maybe this comes along the idea of what Sarah McKenna said, with the DMT and some other like Sylvia Devorum, which are hallucinogens, which plant spirits and other strange entities are people make contact with or see or talk with. Does that have a place within magical practice? I know these are not formalistic rituals and so forth, but I'm interested. I'm just interested in what others might have to say on this, or your own experience or knowledge of these topics. And if you could address those, I'd appreciate it. Again, I love the show, and congratulations on so many years. Podcasting and doing it so successfully, and addressing such a range of subjects, and being very serious-minded in your discussion points and topics. So thank you very much, and love is a law, love unto will. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Those are very different questions, and I'm glad you asked them. First, I don't think that there is a direct discussion of global warming within the OTO and or Thelema. However, that does not mean there isn't something that can be figured out from this and kind of looked at. One of the things that has gotten us into the situation about global warming is the fact that mankind sees itself separate from its environment. And therefore, we kind of look at what we do to the world around us as not affecting us, that we're some kind of integrated or separate entity from the world. And I think it's that kind of mentality that has let mankind abuse the earth around us and cause all of the environmental harm that we've done without thinking that there's going to be a direct impact. I think Thelema, and in particular the Eon of Horus, has a different ideological stance that we're all part of the same kind of environment, that there isn't this real separation between, the outside and the inside. If you look at kind of like the play between Nuit and Hadit, Nuit being all of the possibilities and Hadit being an individual, well, then, there is this interaction between the all and the one, and to really think that there's no connection there is really kind of foolish. And so I would think that moving into the new eon and getting a more conscious idea of one's interaction within one's environment and how will can change within environment and how environment can affect the individual, that would possibly cause somebody to look at the environment differently and maybe want to engage in helping the environment more. Now, in particular to the OTO doesn't get involved in those kind of political issues. Global warming, the environment are certainly issues that are on the minds of many, many OTO members, and that kind of manifests in their own personal practice and their own work, but is not something that the OTO, as far as I'm aware, takes an official position on. And then also